Although you meet the most incredible people, I don't believe that happens until you've truly stepped into.
Today I have Melanie Branch. She is a beautiful friend of mine. We've done business together for years, and I know Mel is not afraid to scare some of you, but to share some of the more.
Yeah, so there was so much unlearning that had to happen, but there were so many sacrifices that people wouldn't think is a sacrifice. No one would think that not working on Monday or Friday is a sacrifice. That's the best thing ever, but at the time it wasn't. It was a sacrifice that I had to make to understand that this is the next level.
Welcome to Unmasked Founders with Leslie Kay. This is the podcast that goes beyond the highlight reel of entrepreneurship. Instead of focusing on the accolades and achievements, this show explores the real moments that shape founders, the challenges, the breakthroughs, and the lessons that transform both the business and the human behind it. Hosted by me, Leslie Kay, an entrepreneur who has built empires and discovered the cost of success. Unmasked Founders is a space for honest conversations about growth, resilience, and staying true to who you are. Whether listeners are just starting out or scaling to the next level, this is where real stories are told. Welcome to Unmasked Founders, a conversation with me, Leslie Kay.
Hi, and welcome back to another episode of Unmasked Founders, where we go behind the scenes in what it really takes to build big in business. This isn't the highlight reels, this isn't the how-tos, this is some of the raw, real, and oftentimes vulnerable stories of female founders that have made it and what it actually cost them to get there. Today, I have Melanie Branch. She is a beautiful friend of mine. We've done business together for years, and I know Mel is not afraid to scare some of you, but to share some of the more deep and real and intimate moments of business and self-growth. So, Mel, welcome to the show.
Yes, thank you for having me. It's definitely going to be fun because sharing this side, I think, it needs to happen more. So I'm going to be like no holds barred.
Yes, I love this. My goal is to have some exclusives on this show. So feel free, the good, the bad, the ugly. My intention for this program is to skip the highlight reel, basically.
Yeah.
I think so often we talk about the lessons in a positive light and the positive spin we put on it, the marketing spin, oh my God, yeah, it was hard, but I'm so good, look at me. And the women on this show are multi-6 and 7-figure founders, yes. And let's start with this question. What has it cost you?
Oh, where do I start with the answer would be how I would hit that one back. If we're going to be no holds barred along this journey, for me now, it's been 9 years full-time online. This is my fourth multi-6 and 7-figure company. Only one was 6 figures, all the rest have been 7. And what that cost me was something that I used to say a lot of, which was short-term pain for long-term pleasure. But that short-term pain has been 9 years. Well, maybe not 9, because, we've been well established now, but let's say 6, right? Or 7 of those were I'm still hanging on to it's short-term pain for long-term pleasure, and that short-term pain was time with my kids. I sacrificed watching them grow up, basically, in order to leave a legacy where they don't have to ever need to struggle, not because I want to leave money behind, but because I wanted to show them what determined and motivated and successful looked like to me. Because I feel as we're growing up, we're certainly told what we should be. And I think that's some of the wounds that we've all carried is what you should have been and how you should have acted. And, I just didn't want to be that parent that was like, you need to be a surgeon, be a doctor, be a lawyer, or you need to be successful, or you need to, have enough money to travel the world, or whatever that is. I wanted to be able to show them that, well, I did it so I can comment, in real time. I always had my parents giving me advice about things that they'd never done.
I love that. So
to tears. it still does. My dad still tells me how to try and build my business, after losing every single one of his. So, that for me was so important.
Yeah, there's so many angles I feel like we could go down here. And what comes to mind for me, it really depends on your circumstances, because I said my life hack is I got divorced, but I have a great co-parent. So we share 50-50 custody. So I do have I'm fortunate that I have an environment where for 1 week I'm a present mum and 1 week I'm a boss babe, and that works really well in our dynamic, and I'm forever grateful for the work that me and my ex-husband did to get to that place.
Yes.
And probably more so the fact that subconsciously at the time I chose such a great father, and it has made the journey to being a single mum and now in another new relationship so much easier. I mean, it had its challenges, but I want to touch to this piece, and I speak about this often, where my son's my reason, not my excuse.
Yes.
And I try as much as possible to be a present mum and to not sacrifice time with him, but evident at the moment, I'm running an event and it's school holidays, and so many mums come back to me with, well, at school holidays I can't. And my response is constantly, it's school holidays, so you must. Like, you're actually giving your children the excuses that they're going to take into their future to be like, well, I can follow my dreams as long as I'm not a mum.
Yeah, that's so true. So true. And I think also where the life that we grew up in, where you just had to be home before the lamps outside came on, it's so different for our kids now. And it was really important to me that I built, and raised warrior women, because I believe that the world that I'm leaving them in is far more dangerous than what I was ever up against. So having that attitude where it was like, hey, you know what, I can't because I need to be present with my kids, was really going to show them that I was going to be there all the time. And every time you needed me, mummy's here. And that's not true. It's not true, because what happens when I'm not here? And what happens, if my life for some reason is cut short, heaven forbid, but I really wanted to raise my children in a way where it was like, you've got this, whether I'm there or not, you've got this. You don't need to wait for me. So I think there was method in I know there was method in my madness of not being available all the time.
But I also don't think it's sustainable. Like, truthfully, one of the biggest things I see that's not wrong to make it a blanket statement, but women are so self-sacrificial. We walk around saying we're compromising, but really we're just sacrificing our needs because it's inconvenient for us to want what we want in this moment. I was listening to someone say last night, you can have everything but not all at once. Yes, and you can't have anything if you're not willing to do the work to build the foundations that you want. So I know I was just in Bali with you and we were talking about everything you're pouring into your daughter's cheerleading, because you get to do that now because of, I don't want to say sacrifices, the decisions that you made, the choices that you made to actually say, no, I'm not using my children as an excuse. I'm going to make this work because of them, not in spite of them. And I think so many people get it wrong, where I can really tell people they're going to make it in business versus those that aren't. And, making six figures in this day and age is surviving. It's not thriving. And so many people I speak to are like, well, it's good enough, or I'm comfortable here because I don't want to sacrifice X, Y, and Z. And it might mean missing one school event or not picking them up from school on one day, but people are just not willing to do it because they're not actually willing to do what it takes to build what they say they want to build. And I think it's the biggest reflection for me. So I love that you've highlighted that. I so often I hear people say they want something, but they're not willing to do what it takes. And I think it's like, it feels to me like people think that they have to sacrifice all of it or none of it. Versus, what about just 1 week where someone else picked up your kids from school? Guess what? Your kids aren't going to die. They're not going to hate you. You're not going to be labelled a bad mum. And if someone labels you a bad mum for missing 1 week of school pickup, they're not who you need in your world to have the life you want anyway.
Yeah, I think it's the pressures that people put on themselves based on their own wounds. And usually it's because they've seen how their mum did it.
Yeah.
And, my mum was a good mum because she stayed home, and my mum was a good mum because she cooked dinner every night, or whatever those beliefs are. Whereas I kind of had to throw those out of the window because my mum was a good mum, but she never showed me how to make money. My mum was a good mum, but she left me with all of her wounds and all of her trauma. So I've got to do things different. Yeah. Which is it's going to demand a different version of me to what I know should be what I'm doing. Yeah. So that was sort of something that I had to understand was, I had to understand right from the start that the sacrifice, it's not only going to be something that I need to do for my business and for my family, but I also have to sacrifice what I know to be true.
Truly.
I had to sacrifice what I thought was right. I had to sacrifice what people might think of me. All of those were a sacrifice, really. I had to sacrifice friends and relationships and situations to build legacy and future. And quite often people don't understand, and you would have heard, it's a lonely trip to the top, and fuck me, that's the truest comment I've ever heard. Although you meet the most incredible people, I don't believe that happens until you've truly stepped into who you are, what you're doing, where you're going, and you're super confident in that process. I think there's a really messy middle piece in all of that that no one really talks about. And, once you get that right, you start to attract some pretty amazing humans. But, there's this piece where the sacrifice happened, where you feel lost and you feel like you've abandoned people, and maybe you've abandoned your kids in some ways, and you've abandoned yourself. And, there's a lot of potential abandonment that's happened, but you learn from that as you go. So I think that was probably one of my biggest sacrifices. Was I sacrificed probably the most precious times in order to hopefully ingrain in them the basics of what's going to be needed for them to survive in the world that they're going to be in, So now being, 15 and 11 years old, they're so entrepreneurial, which I just think, man, what a gift. What a gift. Rather than giving them a bank account full of money,
yes.
I gave them the skills to go and make as much as whatever makes you happy, whatever choices, whatever lifestyle you want to live, you've now got the skills to go and create that.
I love this. And I want to talk about this messy middle, because I think this is the whole point that a lot of people don't see. It's like people come out the other side and talk about, and I'm an advocate for working a 20, 30-hour week. And I don't think there's enough conversations around what it actually took in the middle to get there. Yeah. And one of the things I want to unmask in these conversations is, like the ego deaths, the identity deaths, which you touched on, the losing of friendships, the changing of circles, the relationships that you might lose along the way. So, I would love to, you've spoken a little to society's expectations and your parents, and really you cleaning up what they left behind inside of the way that they were taught to parent you. Yeah. And I really just want to cement in, there's no right way to parent. It's just what feels true for you.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, this messy middle bit, talk to me about that, because, for those that are maybe in the messy bit, that are looking for something to pull them through from, maybe they've just cracked the 100K and they thought that was going to be freedom. And now they're like, well, shit, I feel like I'm right back at the beginning, and it feels like I'm starting again, and I should be breaking through. Yeah. Can you speak to people in this part, in the part, that people don't see often?
Another level, another devil part, which is, an expectation that you put on yourself as to what you thought it was going to look like, but that's not what people told you. That's not necessarily the truth. And I can kind of speak into this. When I built my first company, reached the top, it was a network marketing company, reached the top really, really fast. And when I got there, I was like, oh, where's the marching band and, all the things. Yeah, because when I get there, I'm going to have, right? So that was the belief. When I get there, money's going to be flowing. When I get there, it wasn't true. when I got there, all the same problems were there. When I got there, all the same issues of growing a business were there. If anything, they were amplified. So I think, you're only ever going to be as big as your business is only ever going to be as big as you. And if you're not focusing on that personal growth and working through all the things that are coming up on that journey, you're going to prolong the inevitable. And it's that what you run away from, you're going to run into.
Truly, I could say this so often. So many examples of this.
Yeah, so many. And so do I. I have run into so many things that I've tried to run away from. And, I think you just get to a point. But also I think there's a point in business where, say for me now, we're in such a great position because of the choices we've made, because of how we've built the business, that now we're able to have the nervous system slow down. Now we're able to have the slow mornings and the I don't want to work this week and the I'm going on holidays. So I think I wish someone had have shared with me how important the structure is in your business in order for you to have a nervous system that can chill. Because if not, it's never going to. No one ever told me that. It's like, no, do this, no, do that, build it like this, build it like that. And it was just like, oh my God, this is not right. Like, this is not, my nervous system's still, completely fried. So, I think there's so many pieces of that sacrifice that we talk about. And I think people who I see that want to do it themselves, like, for example, I need a website, I'll just build it myself. I just build it myself. I'll just do it myself. I'll do my own socials. I'll do my whatever. Like, the sacrifice that they're making is how quickly you're going to bring things to life. Therefore, there's going to be more sacrifices on your family, more sacrifices on your time with your kids. So I think it needs to be spoken into more, that by people understanding that the faster you get your circle, the faster you get your people around you that you want to emulate, and you're like, I want what she's got, or I want to be able to create a business structure that looks like that. The faster you can make that happen, the faster you're going to be able to have less sacrifices. Whereas I think too many people go, oh, no, like, it's going to save money, or it's going to save time, or, then I don't have to train a team, or whatever it is. But again, you're prolonging the inevitable. And that inevitable is that this process is just going to continue of you feeling like all you're doing is making sacrifices. So I think it's it's like this, the snake that eats its tail. It's just going to keep going until you can hold the structure of a scalable company, and you hold the embodiment of a CEO and the leadership that takes. Then those sacrifices will stop.
Yeah, I want to say be mindful of the season that you're in, and like some of what you're speaking to, like if you're in startup and you have more time than you have money, then fucking you are just going to have to hustle and figure it out on your own
100%.
and move with the energy of your business. But if you're 12 months in, you're hitting 100K and you're still trying to hustle because you're in scarcity or lack, or you think that you know how to do it better than everyone else, or you don't trust people, or no one gets me, no one gets my business, and you're stuck in these traps of only I know how to get myself from here. One, you're not opening yourself up to community, and two, you're never going to scale past your own limitations, because we can't be good at everything. We can't be amazing at marketing and amazing at coaching. We can be good at some things, but not amazing at a lot of things at the same time. And for me, it's about finding people you trust that have done it, that you can start to give some of that to, so you do have the capacity to move into whatever the next season might be.
And I think the end result that you're aiming for is, how can I just be in my zone of genius?
Yeah.
Because it's there that the sacrifices somewhat stop. It's there that the nervous system can calm down. It's there, and not before. I don't believe it happens before. I believe that, like you just said, there's a season of hustle, and embrace it. Love it. Get used to it, because, if you are building big, there's going to be seasons where you're going to have to be in the trenches and you're going to have to, you know, put your masculine pants on and off you go. You know, and then there's going to be those seasons where you can chill again. So, you know, sacrifice, I believe in order to create big success and to leave an impact on the world far greater than yourself, you need to be ready that there's going to be sacrifices. You need to decide what they're going to be.
I would agree, but I would say that people sacrifice far more than they need to
100%.
because they're avoiding having some of the harder conversations or setting up the right foundations. I think for me, I always find the middle way. And I think some people sacrifice more than they need to because they weren't willing to look at their own behaviors, patterns, belief systems before they did it the hard way. Some people need to learn the hard way. And I think there's some people that are out here struggling or in pain or keep learning the same lessons or have the business but don't have the relationship that they want, or have the business but don't have their health, or have the business but have shit relationships with their kids because they're not willing to find like the middle ground. They're not willing to have the hard conversations. They're not willing to be like, well, I'm the common denominator here. I'm the one that needs to change. And it's not my OBM and it's not my offer. It's not Jane that helped me set up my systems. I actually need to elevate my leadership and start to lead my business like a business, not scrappy little founder that I've been doing it like this for 2-3 years, so I'm just going to keep doing it like this. Because I think this is where people lose more than they need to or hurt more than they need to because they're not willing to actually elevate into the leadership that it needs to like hold the next iteration of their business and their personal growth.
And I think people suffer a lot more than they need to because they compare. You know, comparing your chapter 1 to my chapter 1000, you know, is like you can't do it, right? You know, and I think it's wildly dangerous to be looking left. You know, I always got taught, like, put your blinkers on. There's a reason that horses have blinkers on when they're in a race. And it's because they don't give a shit about what the dude next to them's doing, you know, and we need to apply that, especially in business, and especially now with how crazy the online space is. It's wild out there at the moment with what's going on and what people can tell you that, you know, you can create and what you can do and build and whatever. And it's like, just keep your goddamn blinkers on, because your gut will tell you, your heart already knows. Yeah, you're already doing the things, you're already moving in the right direction. All you got to just keep doing is trusting yourself. You know, just keep trusting yourself. And quite often I know that the times that I struggled or suffered more than I needed to was when I was worried about what people were thinking. And I bet you 9 times out of 10, they weren't even thinking it, you know, but I had this, you know, this made up story or perception in my head of what was happening, and it wasn't true. And I spent, you know, sleepless nights, God knows how many, of running this through my head of, you know, this scenario that actually didn't exist. So, you know, again, there's that sacrifice. I sacrificed time. I sacrificed sleep because I hadn't done the work, right? I hadn't really gone in and gone, okay, hang on a second. There's some mindset stuff coming up here. There's some beliefs coming up here. There's some fear, you know, let's dive into that and then let's get back into it again. I also think, though, that it's a double-sided coin, because not everybody has the luxury of pausing to heal. True. And, you know, that was a big thing for me, was I had to heal in the middle of the goddamn storm, you know. So I think, you know, if that's you, do it however the hell you need to, you know. If it's going to require you to, you know, be all in fast, you know, and then, you know, you're going to be able to pull out a little bit, then do it, you know. And I think just giving yourself that permission is the biggest gift. Do it however the hell you need to, and, you know, get advice from people on that journey that resonate, not the ones that have, you know, forced you into working with them, or, you know, guilt tripped you into joining their program or whatever it is. It's just like, you already know. And the faster that you can get out of your head and into your heart and make decisions based on, what your next step needs to be, not based on that emotion you're feeling that day, it's going to leave you in a really great position.
Yeah, I
Move
love this.
emotions.
I think what resonates for me is like, do it scared, but just do it.
Oh, God, yeah.
So many conversations I have with women in business that are so focused on the strategy or how to scale or what the next shiny object is, and what they're actually avoiding is the deeper parts of themselves that need to evolve in order to hold what's next. And speaking to what you're speaking to, it's like, I get it. If you're in the middle of a growth, you don't think you're going to have time to deal with your shit as you grow, and you probably want to keep neglecting it and pushing it to the side. But that is what will unravel you if you don't pay attention to it. And I would say, not all. Took 12 months off. Not everyone has that luxury.
Yeah.
You have to be willing to do what it takes, and that includes looking at the more painful aspects of yourself and what your business is highlighting for you. The most painful time in my life was when my business was at 8 figures, because the cracks in my leadership started to show in a really, really big way, and for a very long time I tried to avoid that. And if I had have just stopped, slowed down a little, and my clients say this to me often, I teach them to slow down to speed up. But back then I was avoiding that. And so it's like, put the brakes on, look at everything that's happening, and then start to move from a more grounded place rather than continuing to react to chaos and continuing to react to the mess that you've made. And to your point, don't think that, I think the human condition is that we all think we're invincible in some way, and that, it might have happened to her, but it's not going to happen to me. And so many people like run themselves into a brick wall, which was avoidable if they had have just taken Fridays off and done the work.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably the most scariest thing that I hear women reflect back is, it's not so much the strategy and what they need to do in their business, it's their self that becomes scary, and all the ways that they're self-abandoning or scaling chaos or scaling incompetence or scaling fear or scaling lack that's seeped into their business in some way.
Yeah. And I think also, on this journey, every time I've slowed down or taken, some time off, oh my goodness, it's been monumental. Like, we've come back and built entire 3rd, 4th empires, and I think that was something that was really hard for me to learn, because, my businesses, the first company was built off trauma, like 1000% built off trauma, but I'm not sorry for it. I'm so grateful for it, because it was the fuel to the fire. It was the thing that kept me going. It was the thing that got me through some really hard times as well, because I had something else to focus on. So while I was learning how to articulate, coming out of a life of being taught poverty mindset, negative reactions, like that's all I knew. I'd never heard the word personal development in my life. I'd never actually heard the term. So while I was retraining my brain, it was fundamental that I kept moving, because I was the only sole provider. So it served its purpose. But I knew, and I was very, very aware, that this has to have an end date. It's okay for you to sit in it and do starfish and freaking snow angels in it, but you need to have an end date of when we're going to actually go, okay, let's just put this down for a hot minute, and now let's look over here, So I think for me, that was the holidays, that was the, hiring of the boats and spending the time with the girls, like that time where I actually completely disconnected and was present, and we were doing amazing, great things. Of course, I was still thinking like, okay, cool, what's my next step going to be? You can still be present and planning your next attack. 1000%, like your kids sleep. And 9 times out of 10, it's, that's the times where we create, or when we're in the shower or when we're driving, is when we create amazing ideas, or when we have that next breakthrough where it's like, oh my gosh, if I just do it this way, this is going to create me so much extra peace. And for me, that was one thing that really was important to me right from the start was I don't want to work Mondays and I don't want to work Fridays. And the reason for that was because everybody in the world has Sundayitis. And that's that feeling you get where you're like, oh my God, I have to work tomorrow. The weekend's not long enough. We need to really drag this on. And I thought I want to end that. I don't want to ever feel that again. So I don't want Mondays and Fridays. Everyone's like, oh my God, thank God it's Friday. I can finally live my life. And I was like, well, I don't want to work Fridays either because I want to make my life a Friday. I want to build something that I don't need to have a holiday from. So that was something that was really important to me. That was a sacrifice because I had to retrain my brain. No, your business is not going to fall apart if you take a Monday and a Friday off because your brain's like, oh my God, don't do that. Don't do that. You're going to be broke by Monday next week. Like, no, I'm not. That's not even true, but your brain will tell you. It doesn't matter how much you've got in the bank. Your brain's going to tell you you're going to be broke by Monday, because I had learned that busy meant successful.
Truly, yeah.
I learned that busy meant more clients, and then that meant more money, and then that meant, great, now I've got more choices. Well, no, you don't. Yeah, so there was so much unlearning that had to happen, but there were so many sacrifices that people wouldn't think is a sacrifice. No one would think that not working a Monday or Friday is a sacrifice. They'd be like, it's the best thing ever, but at the time it wasn't. It was a sacrifice that I had to make to understand that this is the next level. A CEO that's running, or has built 4 companies, this is the next level, is to go, no, I'm in control. I get to choose. I get to decide what this looks like. So the sacrifices have both been, things that you would expect and things that you wouldn't expect.
Yeah.
Relationships was a big sacrifice, huge sacrifice along the way was, okay, well, if you're not doing what I'm doing or you don't want to build what I want to build, then this isn't going to work. And I guess there's probably still a portion of that because we need to be, I believe, for me, what's important is to have somebody that pushes you to be better and challenges you to be your best self. But I think I was just so focused on like, this is where I'm going and you're in my way right now. Like, it's more work. This is way more work. Yeah. So if you just go, I can just do my thing. So, that journey has probably been one of the most gift giving, is the versions of myself that I've been able to meet along the way as the woman that I've become. Holy moly. I've learned so much, probably more than parenting, I think, which that's a big call. But
Quick pause. Are these conversations resonating with you? Do you finally feel seen in your business journey? This is the entire mission of Unmasked Founders. To strip back the highlight reel and tell the raw truth about multi, 6 and 7-figure success. We're here for the emotional costs, the days you want to quit, and the breakthroughs that follow. And we can bring you these essential conversations thanks to the support of our incredible partners, Cacao Collective and the OE Agency. These are the businesses who empower founders to keep going, providing the systems and the professional polish you need when you're busy navigating the emotional storm. If you love what you're hearing, don't miss an episode. Hit that subscribe button right now and check out Cacao Collective and the OE Agency in the show notes. Now, let's get back to it.
Man, I've learned so much about myself, the way I handle things, the way I communicate, the way I show up, the way that I was like, I need, and it was like, well, hang on a second, what about what he needs? If I don't care, that's what it was like for me. I was like, I don't care. But, learning that, again, that was a sacrifice that I had to make was I had to sacrifice the old version of myself in order for that new one to come to life. And sometimes we're not willing to sacrifice that old version. And for so long I wasn't because, oh my God, well, if I'm not her, like what?
Who am I? Yeah.
Yeah. Like who's the next version going to be? But it's like, you're still that version. You're still her. You've just had a bit of an upgrade, you've had new software. So, that was huge. And such a huge lesson was if you just keep leaning in to all the hard bits and all the bits that are really uncomfortable and all the bits, like I've just had something huge today that's really made me go, right, that was you. now you need to lean into this and you need to be like, right, where did that come from? And how can I do it better next time? And how can I learn from this? And, it's crazy because immediately that lesson was a domino effect. Yeah. So I had another staff member in my business go, oh my God, I just saw that all unfold. I need to now go and make sure that I've put parameters inside my company to make sure that that doesn't happen for my people moving forward. So what a gift, was that in my fuck up, I was able to not only stand in it, feel it, see it, but also show someone else at the same time with complete vulnerability. I fucked up.
Yeah.
I fucked up. That was it. I fucked up. I'm human. I'm normal, but it's how you process it.
It's how you move through those points. Yeah, there was a few things you touched on here. I think 90% of business owners build on the back of trauma. And one thing I get fed back to me so often is, well, I didn't have big T trauma, so that's not true. And I want to remind everyone that's listening that trauma is either too much, too fast, too soon, big T trauma, or not enough over a long period of time. So if your parents didn't tell you they loved you, or they only showed you they loved you through achievement or praise, then that is trauma. And your little mind now thinks, and this is one of the biggest one for women, if I'm not performing, I don't get love. And so we push into entrepreneurship really just because we want to be loved, and we only think we can be loved if we're performing.
Being rock stars.
In some way. So I just wanted to touch on that because, I have so many conversations and so many brilliant women that sometimes also don't resonate with my story because I've got big T trauma, and they're like, well, I don't have trauma. 90% of us do. Even if it wasn't big T, I pretty much promise you we can't be perfect as parents. There's something that we're going to do that's going to fuck up our kids, and our parents were the same. So don't try and categorize yourself that, well, I'm not the same because I maybe didn't have sexual assault or physical abuse or poverty or whatever that might be. I know some of the most brilliant women that come from the perfect family and went to private schools, and they feel so unloved because their parents maybe didn't tell them they loved them. And so it can be ingrained in us in any way. The 100%. Second part that you touched on was the women we have to become to hold different relationships. And I think it's so crucial. And I've done a lot of work on this over the 4 years because my first business cost me my marriage. And I speak about this openly because I didn't give a fuck. Honestly, I didn't care whether I had love as long as I had money, because so much of my safety was attached to money. And then I hit this quintessential, I made it to the top. Really, it was just another slope to the bottom, but I made it to this place, and I was like, oh, fuck. I'm inside a marriage that's like empty and sexless. That's not fun. I don't know how to actually love myself. How did I even get here? And I'd been abusing my body. And I say abuse because if you're not showing yourself self-love through movement and food, it's abuse. And that can be really hard for people to hear. But when you're so used to putting yourself last for so long, it generally shows up in diet and exercise or lack of diet and exercise. I just wanted to sort of paint that picture of so many people think, well, I can't resonate with this because of X. And really, we're all just on the same fucking journey trying to figure it out.
100%. And the journey is self-mastery, I believe. The end result that I believe we're all, moving towards is self-mastery. And that is, if you give me an idea, I'll turn it into a business. If you give me good food, I'll turn it into a healthy body. You give me the option to move my body and I'll turn it into extreme fitness, and I think that for me is the driver now, is self-mastery, because that to me means more than continual sacrifice that didn't really have a meaning. It was just like, let's just do the thing. I don't know why we just keep going, just keep doing the thing. Whereas now, the self-mastery for me is still what challenges my brain. It still keeps me firing on all cylinders, which I love. This is how I operate. I always have. But it's not coming from a place now of I'm not enough. It's coming from a place now of how can I just be better than yesterday?
Yeah, I think for me, it's how much better can it get? And self-mastery and all, like for me, like what's the ultimate expression of self-love? Well, I want to continue evolving. I want to make enough money that I could book a business class flight anywhere in the world tomorrow. I only want to eat organic food. I want to have relationships that stretch me, but love me where I'm at, but invite me to where I'm going.
Yes.
And I want to feel on purpose. It can't feel empty. It can't be, well, I've hit 7 figures. I now want to hit 8 figures. And that used to be how I built was, well, I've hit this milestone. What's the next money milestone versus what impact am I making in the world? And how can I have that impact reach more people? And through that, then the business growth happens. And love for me, because love wasn't a priority for me before. And I've spent this time to cultivate that inner love to be able to then have that reflected back in the relationship. I want to touch on this piece because you said, relationships that you've lost and realizations that you've had along the way. What has been one of the most painful realizations on this journey? If like when I say that, what sparks in your subconscious?
The thing that came up for me straight away when you said that was I already was her. I already was her. But I spent years thinking that I wasn't good enough. I'm not there yet. I need to do this. I need to be, you know what I mean? I need to be at this level. I need to earn this much. I was already her. I was already her. I was just the unevolved version, I was a version that needed to sit in the shit. I needed to do snow angels in it. I needed to learn. I needed to grow. I needed to go within, and I think, that in itself is huge to just go, I already was her, because I think quite often I know when I started my journey in business, I used to look at women and be like, when I grow up, I'll be just like her, or I want what she's got. And, it really takes conscious consumption. I'm going to say conscious consumption now to not do the same thing, to not open up somebody's Instagram and be like, oh my gosh, she's got 150,000 followers, and her life looks amazing. It's a shit show in some way, shape or form, in some area, because everyone's is, but I used to get so caught up in, but what am I missing? Maybe I'm doing something wrong, or, I'm not there yet was, I guess, the whole piece that was coming up. So I think that was the most painful, was because I didn't have to abandon myself the entire process to get where I've been.
How did you rest in that knowing? Because I think I see this so often. I've been guilty of this myself. The cognitive dissonance we create in our mind, and it doesn't allow us to be in full gratitude and presence with what we've got, because if we're in comparison, we're constantly wanting what we don't have or what comes next. So what were some of the tools or thought processes or questions or rituals or whatever it was that helped you really rest in that knowing?
I think for me, having moved to Bali, that was a big piece for me, where that was the moment where my nervous system got to go, oh, for fucking thank God for that, and it was just like, oh my God, we made it, So I think for me, it has been the rest time. It has been the honoring the Mondays and Fridays. It has been the, just the whole process of just sitting in it and stop shaming myself for the things that I've done and the decisions that I've made. I've learned so much from it. I can't say there's any one particular thing, but I think there's a group of things, and that self-love was a big piece of the puzzle, and really sitting with, but what makes me happy? What do I actually want? Aside from all the things I thought I wanted, what do I actually want? And it was this life. It was this feeling. It was the slow mornings. It was the business that fires on autopilot. It was all of those things, as one. And I think also it was the people around me as well. I was due for an upgrade. I was due for an upgrade. And I think loyalty probably kept me in some situations that I probably should have moved away from a lot earlier. So now we're in this insane stage of shedding, where it's just left, right, and center. Things are falling away in the most amazing way. And, this new pathway and all of these new things that are coming to life are just like, oh my God, this is exactly what I asked for. This is exactly everything that I've done up until now has prepared me for this moment, of the business that's literally hands off, and I think I know for me, what I went through was this next stage for us, as you know, moving into, software creation and all these things. I was like, oh yeah, but you can't stop doing what you're doing. Like, how can you do that? Because you've built your entire, like, everything, your existence has been built on this. And it's like, I'm not stopping, but I know where my focus is. And with how fast the world is moving, I hadn't upgraded my vision. My vision was still, okay, let's keep doing the thing and, keep building. And this is what we do. And we bring in clients and we build things and, and that was just, it ended up kind of being Groundhog Day. And it wasn't until I kind of sat with it and went, what actually makes me happy is always creating. I love it. I thrive off it, and if I could create this life where I just got to do and create things all the time and gave myself the permission to do so, this is the jackpot. Whereas I found that I was like, oh no, you can't do that because you're already here. You've built the thing and now you've built it. It's like, now you've made your bed, lie in it,
Yeah, like creating prisons of your own belief system and like, well, I'm going to call it identities, masks, and this leads into my next question. What are some of the biggest masks you feel you've worn, and how have they kept you stuck?
Probably one of the biggest masks I've worn is I'm okay. Definitely not in the early days of my business. Are you okay? Yeah, I'm so good. Business is so good. Everything's amazing. And it was just like, oh my God, kill me now. That was the biggest mask. And I wore it for years. And still now I find myself, here and there, I'm like, yeah, but I'm not okay. And it's okay to not be okay. So I think the difference for me is how I choose to share that. Before, I would have felt called to, make a vulnerable post and, all that type of stuff. Whereas now I don't feel the need to do that anymore. It's like, I know I've got this tool belt. Yeah, this invisible tool belt that I wear now. And it's like, oh, you feel like shit. Oh, just grab out this one, and it's like, oh, you're feeling tired. Okay, we're going to go over here, and I think now I've just become so much more articulate in knowing what tool I need to grab based on, how I'm feeling. So definitely the mask of being okay was, yes, it all worked out in the end, but I always say this openly, I would never give anybody any advice on how to start their business like I did because it was not healthy. It was not healthy. It was completely built off trauma and, energy drinks and late nights and early mornings, and I definitely would not recommend doing it that way. But that was my journey. That was my story. And we have to be okay with how it unraveled for us. But would I do it again? No, definitely not.
So someone's listening to this and maybe they're in the messy middle and they're realizing that they're wearing a lot of masks or identities. Masks aren't always a bad thing. We can have masks that help us evolve into the next version of us. But in my experience, in what I've gone through and what I witness women go through, there can be identities that are unhelpful in where we want to go. It oftentimes relates to an identity. Like for me, when I was closing my recruitment businesses, there was such an ego death because I'd attached a lot of my identity to being the world's best recruiter. And to then shed that identity and evolve into what was coming next was really painful because I wasn't ready to let go of who I thought I needed to be. So, we've had a lot of conversations about masks and what you've lost and what it's cost you. If someone's listening and they're maybe in a season where it feels a little harder than it used to be, or it's the hardest it's felt to date, what would you say to someone in that season of their business?
I think you're right on the edge of a breakthrough. It's always the way, it's always the way when you're like, oh my God, we're in it now. I literally said to a friend the other day, like, oh my goodness, like what is with this energy right now? But it's the shedding. And I think being able to take yourself out of where you are and stand back, remove the emotion and have a look at what's going on. I was able to look at the situation that's going on for us at the moment, and it's it's nothing that anyone would be like, oh my God, that's bad. But it's like, whoa, what's happening? What's going on here? Why? There's this shedding that's happening. There's this move. There's this shift in energy. And, I think straight away now I can anchor into, I know what's about to happen. I know that, what we've just built is going to be an absolute global success. I know that next level is going to be absolutely phenomenal and better than I ever imagined, with, more downtime and more automations and more amazing things. But I didn't know that years ago. And how that person would be feeling right now, if it's messy, is, I'm ready to throw in the towel. Is it fucking worth it? Why have I even bothered? I'm not successful. I don't know how to do this. Yeah, I'm shit. This doesn't work, blah, blah, blah. So I think in that moment, like, it's time to go in, because you are being reflected with that mirror, the exact things right now that need to be worked on in order to reach that next level faster. So if growth and success or whatever you're creating is important to you, the faster you go in, the faster you're going to come out, and I think, like you said, people prolong that process. So it does this, right? We've got your problem and we've got your where I want to be. And the faster you do it, they switch. Yeah. And the faster and the longer that you prolong it, it does this. And it's like you're getting further away, right? With that goal being in the middle, you're getting further away from that even
where
happening.
you actually want to be.
100%.
I want to speak to this a little, because you've touched on it a little bit, and I've known you for a few years, and you're paving the way with new softwares and new programs that you're bringing out. And truthfully, like 12 months ago, I wouldn't have actually said that you were willing to evolve past the software you were using. And I would have said that that was a hamstring for you. So I would love to bring light to what the change was in almost like being so hyper-focused on one thing, and then when you realized that was what was stopping what was coming next for you and your business growth.
As I expanded, as I allowed my vision to expand, that's when I was like, oh, hang on a second. What I'm building is far greater than what I've ever seen. So how can it be over here? Right? I'm going to need to look at, alrighty, well, where are we going to put this thing? What's going to house this growth? Because it's going to be exponential and it's going to be fast, which is what I never saw before. Right. So when my business grew really literally overnight, or over a 3-day period, my business went from $6,000 a month to 180. Like, it was disgusting growth. Like, and even saying it, my body's like, because it was so horrendous, the growth. Whereas most people are like, quality problem. No, it was actually a problem because I didn't have time. I didn't have time to prepare my nervous system. I didn't have time to prepare my business, my staff, my systems, my nothing. So what I know now from that lesson is I can now forecast very, very well what's about to happen. And in this process, I could see that I needed to have something that was something that was already pre-built but larger than what we had capability-wise, or I'm going to have to go and build something myself, which I think in the end is probably going to be where we go, because, it's going to have to be its own standing structure. But again, we need to now go into test phase. We need to now go, all the things that we teach, we're about to go and do for ourselves. So, in this evolution of where I am now into this next chapter that's opening up, I sat with, what if I stop coaching? What if I stop? What's that going to look like? And my body was like, oh my God, no, you can't. That's stupid. Don't be dumb. What about money? Like, it's like this little rabbit in my head, that's like, no, you're going to die. Like, and it was like, well, no, that's not true, because we've built the foundations now, right? So okay, let's get rid of what's going on in the head, because that's not true. And let's really drop into what's real and what's true right now. And it was like, okay, we've got the foundations. What we're moving into massively complements my brand and what I've been about for years. So I'm not contradicting myself. I'm not, which I really I'm really aware of, because I see people jump from one thing to another and now they're launching something else. And it's just like, whoa, straight away, there's no trust, right? So I really had to honor, the brand that we've built over all of the years to go, okay, is this correct for the brand? Is it correct for our message and what we stand for? Am I still going to be able to serve people like I have up until now? Yes, 1000%. If anything, it's given us what I like to talk about, and I'm sure I shared this with you many years ago, is creating gateways and creating doors. So when people come into your world, however that happens, creating doors of opportunity, no matter where they're at in their buying cycle or in their journey. Yeah. And that might be, we speak on a podcast, or it might be that we collab on an event or whatever that is. And by me creating more doors and more opportunities, that's not me creating another program, right? It's not me creating another launch or another this or another that. This is me creating complementary gateways to what we already do, to now allow me to step into that next level of vision that has tested the hell out of me. It's expanded my brain far beyond what I thought that it could even hold. The things that we're learning right now and that I'm seeing, I didn't even know what some of these words were. I'm like, you did what to the what? Coding and building out, softwares from the ground up, like holy moly, it's insane. So to answer your question, what needed to give way was me going, okay, this journey has not ended, because I think a lot of us get scared, like it's not finished. Yeah, we're just stepping into that next evolution. And as soon as I could allow my nervous system to go, babe, it's all good. Like you're still doing the thing. You're not, ripping your brand to pieces and rebuilding it again. You're now adding the next layer of gold on top of this thing. So I like to think of it now as, this gold sandwich where it's just, really thin layer of gold was where we started. And then we put on a little thicker layer, and then we put a little bit of cream in and another, and it's just like this thing is just this. If you imagined it like a wedding cake and you cut into the middle, it'd be the most stunning piece of artwork in the middle of all the layers that we've built. And I think it's such a key lesson when you're building a really strong brand is this going to complement or is this going to hurt? One or the two.
And do you think it was also letting go of what you thought it was going to look like, so what it actually wanted to look like could emerge? I get this sense of like, yeah, there was almost a small death process in that alone of like, well, I thought it was going to look like this, it's not, and here's what actually wants to
well, the next level of scaling for us, I thought, was going to be, right, now we're going to, deploy massive marketing campaigns where we're going to fill our 8-week program because we've tested it, we've measured it, we know what we need to do, we know it works, blah, 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 and that's going to be it. Then I'm going to hire, there's going to be sales team, and then I'm going to retrain, and I'm going to have coaches, and then I step out. That was my game plan. And it was the death of like, well, no. I mean, you can do that if you want, but if I actually anchor into my top 3 values that I got really, really clear on when I started my business, which was communication, adventure, and inspiration, they were so key and so core in what I'm creating and who I wanted to become. Those values, I was like, wow, like this next level fits that so well, because I realized, even though I already knew, like building 4 successful companies, I knew that I could do this, but it's kind of like the penny dropped. And I was like, no, I can actually really show people how to do this, in a sense. It doesn't matter whether it's a product business, we've done that, we've smashed it. Whether it's an online business, we've done it, we've smashed it. But the key piece that was missing in what I delivered, and I could see it happening, not more and more, but I could see this split, was that people would work with us and some would get results and some wouldn't. Same process, same strategy. Why? Why? Some already had a brand, some already had a voice. And that really irked me right from my very first business. It's been my irk the whole entire time, is, but why hasn't she done what she did, you know.
Mm.
I gave them the same thing. Yeah, it's the same process. And obviously, you know, sometimes it's the person as well. But I needed to reflect inwards and go, okay, but how can I do this better? Not how can I do more? How can I do this better? And it was like we literally uncovered a gap in the market that Zuckerberg's missed, you know, and it's like, this is an absolute game changer, but it adds on another layer of gold for the people that are in my world to go, hey, you know, that thing that you were missing, because everyone's missing it. There's not one person that has this thing dialed. I can help you now. You know? And I believe that once you nail that piece inside your business, your organic strategy, your organic marketing, and being able to, you know, turn strangers into friends and friends into family, now you've got the permission to go and potentially blow it up with Facebook ads and, you know, become number one in the world. So to me, it's just like, I don't know, it's such a proud moment that I actually worked it out, where I was like, oh, that's the thing. But I always kind of knew. I always knew that, you know, the next piece, once somebody's worked with me, the next piece, once everything's set up, is that they need to go out and start marketing with paid marketing, right? Like, it's the next piece of the puzzle. But is it? And it was like, well, no, it's actually not. That's what they say you need to do. But if you haven't nailed the organic, you're not going to get good results in the paid. And I just see that over and over again. So, yeah, it's you're right. There's been a death. There's been a death in the family, that's for sure. And, you know,
necessary sometimes.
Yeah, it was amazing. And it's been such a gift as well, because I've now learned things that, you know, have stretched me beyond what I thought was even possible. And if you had said to me, you know, you're going to own a software that nobody in the world has, I would have been like, hey, I'm not that smart. Like, I'm not smart enough. I'm not looking to invest in that area. That was another thing that was really huge for me. I was like, yeah, but I'm not looking to invest in doing that. You know, if someone had to come to me and said, oh, do you want to build out a software from the ground up? I'd be like, no, I don't, because I'm focusing on scaling my business over here. So I think it was that willingness to just be open-minded on what's possible.
Truly. And I think, because I know a little bit about behind the scenes, it's like
just a little.
Some people would have gotten scared at the partnership component of this and the trust in someone else and the really just not trusting their intuition and making decisions, because so many people, you hear of so many horror stories, and from what I can see from the inside out, it's like you've found someone you can trust, you've built a product, and now you're ready for what's next. And I think that only comes from building the self-relationship and the self-trust first.
Yeah, I think also I can see there's a piece that it came from trusting my leadership as well. I know when something's not right. I know when someone's behavior is off. I know when, you know, you've asked for something and you're not getting it and you're just going to wait a few more days to see. Like, no, your gut told you it was already a problem back when it was a problem. So I think trusting my leadership was huge in this, because obviously, you know, going to somebody with an idea like this, like, there's huge trust in that right there. Is, I'm going to tell you something that nobody's done, and now I need you to help me build this. But also I think, you know, the old me probably would have tried to somewhat undercut that person and be like, well, you know, I'll take 80, you take 20, you know, and be like, well, you know, this is my thing, this is my idea, this is my business. Whereas the new me went, well, hang on a second, this person that I'm partnering with is an absolute wizard. And to have that knowledge and skill in my company makes us somewhat untouchable now. You know,
humble and grace. I think the biggest, like, the maturity of the businesswoman is what I hear in that. It's like the not giving away your power and knowing your strength, but also understanding when you need grace and to be humble and to deepen the relationships that you do have. Yeah,
I don't know what he knows, but with him I can learn. You know, and that's huge. And I think just that piece has taken us from a marketing company, and there's gazillions, to now the only marketing company that has the entire structure of helping you build all the things and then deploying the actual strategy that's going to bring you leads in as well. That's not Facebook ads, right? Because not every business is going to have that budget. So that was Jesus, like just in that one little decision, we've now taken ourselves out of the blue ocean and popped ourselves in the pink ocean, which is really, really cool. So many lessons.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much for your authenticity, your vulnerability, for going there on some of the questions with me today. I've really appreciated the time and a little look underneath the hood. Keep doing what you're doing. I'm loving watching the evolution. And where can people find you?
www.lifestyleind.com is where they can find us. But, that's going to be getting a bit of a revamp and a bit of a facelift moving forward as well. So that's the brand for now. But when we do release this secret thing that we're talking about, it's a standalone brand of its own. So
awesome. Well, we'll make sure it is in the show notes when you go live. Thank you very much. It has been a pleasure as always.
You are welcome.
Thank you for listening to Unmasked Founders with me, Leslie Kay. Follow Leslie Kay on social media for more insights, and we'll see you in the next episode. You can find me at Leslie with a Z, Kaye. Check the show notes for how to spell my name. Remember, true success is built from the inside out.